All right, let's get into this here. So there's the games to react to, but I don't think there's any question the biggest thing to react to. I mean, let's be real. We were talking about it on Friday, and we said, hey, if we reconvene on Monday morning and Sirianni's still the head coach, then there's a pretty darn good chance he's going to stay the head coach. Now, again, we don't know for sure. Matter of fact, let's listen right out of the gate to Adam Schefter, just to set the tone for, where we're coming from here, what we can all react to at 215-592-9494. Let's go back to Saturday. This was Saturday afternoon. Schefter on ESPN. This isn't like he's definitely staying, but he's saying, he ain't leaving yet. Listen to what Schefter said Saturday afternoon.
Meetings continue to go on between the Eagles and their head coach, but they lost on Monday night. He's still the head coach now, and so the signs continue to point to Nick Sirianni returning. Nothing official, conversations ongoing. There are expected to be changes on the defensive side of the football, but right now Nick Sirianni still has a job, and it's trending to staying that way.
All right, signs continue to point and trending that it'll stay that way. Let's call it 6 days. I mean, Monday night, 7 days. That's not fair to say Monday. For us, Tuesday morning to Monday morning, 6 days. It's been 6 days. There's some haymaker coaches available, and at this point, Sirianni still has a job. And my basic reaction is I'm disappointed. I think it's a mistake. Look, here's the deal. Tuesday of last week, Tuesday morning, when we did two different polls. We did a poll of do you think Nick Sirianni should be fired, and we did a poll of do you think Nick Sirianni will be fired. The poll of should he be fired, John, was at 81%. 81% thought he should be fired. The poll of would he be fired was at 70%, thought he would be fired. By the way, it goes to show pollsters might have had a good idea that less likely that he'd be fired than people's perception that he should be fired. John, what's your basic reaction? It's now Monday of week 2, if you will. They just got through a weekend. Look, there is a chance that, Jeffrey Lurie, because, leagues don't always like when teams scoop games in the playoffs. I remember, Seltzer, you remember all those years ago when A-Rod opted out of his contract during the World Series.
Sure do, buddy.
And the Major League Baseball Commissioner's office freaked out. They're like, hold on a second here. We wait like 365 days to get to the World Series. A-Rod, don't be a bleep. And, don't have that news during, Game 3 of the World Series.
And it's like a commonly accepted thing in the NFL.
It is.
They don't do that.
It is. So, John, the fact that Sirianni wasn't canned over the weekend doesn't mean he won't be.
Yeah.
But it's kind of getting on some time now. Made it through Thursday last week, made it through Friday last week.
I don't know. Are we kind of getting on some time?
What do you
know
make
that
of
Jeffrey Lurie is incredibly,
thorough?
Infuriatingly thorough with these things at times. I know also that this coach very clearly lost this team during the season, during the last 6 weeks, and he lost this quarterback. And we watched what that looks like on the field. His staff led Jalen Hurts astray, and this season was a failure and a pale facsimile of 2022. We stunk, and it wasn't just down the stretch either. Like, we all knew something was different. We just couldn't put our finger on it.
Yeah.
And the team wronged Nick Sirianni by forcing that Patricia move, and I believe that's what they did. That's not reason enough to keep a coach who will continue to submarine our franchise quarterback. Jalen made more mistakes this year, turned it over an awful lot more, had bizarre choices with the ball at times this year. Why? Why was Jalen reading it wrong? That's the big question. And my culprit is lack of consistent coaching discipline by Nick and his staff and a quarterback who was smelling himself. So it does get very complicated. I know that Nick Sirianni was historically bad this season, the last 2 months, and this organization cannot possibly count on us. I think some of the most elevated fans in the world, this organization can't count on us forgetting that. Can't count on us forgetting what it looked like. I don't care how long you wait, how long you deliberate.
Yeah. We
We know what it felt like. We know the hopelessness. When Jalen was getting blitzed, the third most during the regular season. We now know, like, people are making this compendium of the season. Read an awesome article by Nate Tice.
Compendium?
Nate Tice,
Okay.
Mike Tice's son,
Okay, good.
wrote an article for Yahoo.
Yeah.
Amazing article. I learned Jalen was the third most blitz quarterback of the regular season, and this coach didn't have answers for any of that. That's a real problem. I also learned in this article that, you know, our confidence was reflected in other ways on the field, like the hurry-up offense, tempo stuff, where once we excelled in that area, we've gone away from that. So many areas are reflected. Like the numbers prove it out. It wasn't just an outlier. We actually did suck offensively down the stretch. You know, the second half of the season, it became so predictable that defenders were running our routes for us on critical plays. And the Tice article has embedded video showing receivers blanketed. I mean, skin-tight coverage. You know, what is Jalen?
Is that based on predictability?
Absolutely.
That's the theory, predictability.
The same plays, the same formations, no motion, nothing to throw anyone off the scent. It became so predictable. And Jalen's drop back success rate against the blitz in 2023 was 19th, according to this article, the Tice article. That's right between Desmond Ridder and Mac Jones. We know what those quarterbacks looked like. They were horrendous.
Yeah, you don't want them for the future.
The numbers show that our RPO got figured out by the rest of the league. And this offensive coach,
and by the way, our eyes saw that
figure out
also.
how to
Our eyes saw that.
Right,
you
but
know?
the numbers in
I
this,
understand.
in this article continue to prove it out. So I know what I know what it looks like to not have answers. I know what it feels like to be despondent that your coach continues to make the same mistakes week after week. Why would we run that back again for another season? There's no excuse. There's a lot of explanation that all centers around this team quit incrementally over the last month and a half. So don't run it back with the guy whose team quit on him because they didn't respect him enough.
Well, listen, there's a lot right there, obviously, in what John just said, and you can react to it at 215-592-9494. You also can obviously weigh in on today's Twitter poll question of the day. It's brought to us by Armin Chevrolet. By the way, after you visit the Philadelphia Auto Show, make sure you visit Armin Chevrolet for a great deal on a new or pre-owned Chevrolet. Together, let's drive. ArminChevy.com. Today's question, if the Eagles are keeping Nick Sirianni. Now, we don't know for sure that they are, but again, we're hearing trending in that direction. If the Eagles are keeping Nick Sirianni as head coach, what is your reaction? And we've broken it into two very simple categories. Choice A, don't like it. Choice B, like it. You can vote at Sportsradio WIP on Twitter. And obviously you can weigh in here because we want to hear from you at 215-592-9494.
You have to ask yourself, Joe, if you're bringing him back, is Nick's best trait compliance? Like, is that what he proved he was best at this season? Because I didn't see him prove he was good at the football stuff. And he told us, man, a lot of things that didn't make much sense repeatedly all season long.
I'll tell you, John, I think
if compliance with the front office is his best trait, couldn't you get that from someone else who actually coaches well and has the team's unwavering confidence, Dan Campbell type confidence in them? Like, if you're going to have a guy who's here because he'll listen to what you suggest, can't you get a guy who the team believes in also? Well, I think you can do both.
Well, you can.
I think if we're going to win, you have to have both.
Yeah, look, they did win with him in the past, and it goes to show if he was compliant then and the guys bought in, yes, that is possible. Look, I think there are three main things. If he's keeping his job, John, tell me your reaction to this. I think there are three things, if they are electing to keep him, that will essentially save his job. And it's not like his record, although obviously that's part of it. Make the playoffs 3 times in 3 years. I'm not pushing that aside. But three other elements to me that save his job if that's what's happening. Number one, that Lurie and Howie believe Hurts was largely responsible, and they pin a lot of it on Hurts. Now, they may or may not, but I think there's a good chance they do. And if so, that could save Sirianni's job. Number two, Howie's defensive personnel was a disaster. And, I mean, there's a good – I mean, you can make a strong case at the end of the year the Eagles actually had the worst defense in the NFL. So, and it's certainly not Sirianni's fault that those were the players on the team. I mean, that's Howie's job to pick the players. Number 3, if Lurie and Howie did truly force Patricia upon Sirianni, both with the hiring process of him way back last offseason and then the insertion of him, 3/4 of the way through the season as the defensive coordinator. I mean, you talk about that Friday discussion that Sirianni and Lurie had, and granted, Lurie's the billionaire and Sirianni's not. So at the end of the day, billionaire is going to get what he wants. I mean, billionaire wants guy gone, guy's gone. But I will say from a, I don't want to call it a moral standpoint, an ethical standpoint, just a common sense standpoint, if you're the owner and you believe quarterback let us all down, general manager let everybody down with defensive picks, and I, meaning owner guy, and general manager, screwed it up royally by forcing defensive coordinator number 2 over defensive coordinator number 1, and I made head coach do that. You don't exactly have the greatest moral high ground to stand on to say, all right, you're canned. And I think there's a chance those 3 things might be saving Sirianni. I'm conflicted on it because, let me be clear, I do think Sirianni should be fired. But I will say, when you hear 1, 2, and 3, I mean, there is a case there. And that might be what Lurie and Howie are thinking about, and perhaps why he hasn't been fired, despite the fact Belichick available, Vrabel available, Carroll available, Harbaugh available, some of the young coordinators available. Look, we'll take your reaction at 215-592-9494.
Think about that idea right there. Like, these other coaches, they're not signed on anywhere. Bill Belichick, we know he's interviewed a couple times in Atlanta and elsewhere.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, Jim Harbaugh seems like he keeps interviewing in Atlanta. Doesn't it seem like Atlanta's busting their hump to interview everyone?
I mean, Pete Carroll, I think the guy is a college football Hall of Famer and an NFL Hall of Famer.
Pete Carroll,
I think Pete Carroll's incredible.
The most magnetic guy I've ever been around. Actually, that's not true. It's like Pete Carroll and Dick Vermeil should battle that out in some
Carroll's
room
also
somewhere.
one of the most energetic early 70-year-olds ever. Like that, I'm convinced that guy, he could coach till he's 85.
Belichick, a legend. Look, Mike Vrabel could be a legend someday. These are guys who are available to coach teams right now, and we've got a guy that the team had no confidence in by the way that they did, by the way they played. They demonstrate no confidence in this guy, and we've got legends available. You have to consider that.
Well, look, we'll take your reaction to that and more here at 215-592-9494, including the NFL playoff games. We obviously haven't gotten into them yet, but we'll discuss that next, your reaction both to the games in and of itself, but also as it relates to the Eagles. What you saw, what stood out to you as it relates to what we saw with the Eagles this year, and how they project moving forward. All that on the table. 215-592-9494. Joe DeCamara and Jon Ritchie. It's 94 WIP.